what container are you holding in the world today? Are
Yeah.
you holding the container of tapping into the fear of nuclear war? Are you tapping into, oh my God, the masks are off? Oh my God. Are you tapping into your own anxiety about whatever? I might lose my job, or how's this going to work? And we really need to understand that we choose what container we're creating. Hey everybody, welcome to another Awaken Your Relationships. And today we're going to be talking about, if you had that narcissistic parent per se, it's affecting your world and you don't want to repeat that world. And how do you not repeat that world? Well, we're going to talk about that today. We're going to be short and sweet. I'm Julie Murphy. I've spent the last 25 plus years as a financial planner, and we either work things out or act it out. We do it through our money, through our health, and our relationships. So that's why Rita's gonna help us on the relationship side. Rita!
Hi. The world has been going crazy lately. I was in the strangest situation over the weekend. I mean, this has never happened to me before. I'm sitting in a minivan with a friend of mine, old college friend. We're on our way to
Sounds like the
the Brookfield
1960s.
Zoo. Right, it was great. So I'm in it. Well, it's a soccer mom minivan, and her kids just went off to college. Her twins, and she's divorced. Her twins just went off to college, and so she's an empty nester. And so we're all college friends, and we decided to go to the Brookfield Zoo. So her and I are carpooling to the
Right?
Brookfield Zoo, and we're in Buffalo Grove, which is a higher end area, of course. And she's getting gas, and suddenly, and I'm dressed for the zoo. I'm dressed in my leopard print, fake fur jacket and my little
Right.
acorn hat and my little owl mittens so I can go whoo whoo, at everybody, and these great orange corduroy. I mean, I looked like a work of art going to the zoo.
That's
And
awesome.
suddenly I hear my friend yelling at someone in the gas station parking lot while she's getting gas. And I decide I have to get out of this vehicle because I'm going to defend my friend. She's, same age as me, white, middle-aged woman, and her name is Karen, actually, oddly enough, but she's a good friend. She's a good friend.
That's
And I
funny.
hear her randomly yelling at this person in a parking lot. And I'm like, okay, I really want to stay in the van, but I can't. I got to back up my friend. Whatever's happening,
Totally.
I got to back her up. And it was because there was this middle-aged old, guy, white guy. She said he was, middle-aged old Jewish guy. I don't know. And he was talking smack to this kid who has Asperger's, who was loading his tank with gas. And he was fumbling and wasn't sure. And here's this guy in the background saying, never learned how to pump gas before. And my friend took offense because the kid clearly, was a little off.
Right.
Probably the guy in the, car couldn't tell, but my friend was a little off. This guy was a little off, and he was bullying him. And
Aww.
here now we're in this situation. It's like, do you go after the bully, or do you stay and protect the victim? Are you doing a drama triangle of victim, perpetrator, rescuer? That little ugly scene playing out in a Thornton's gas station parking lot while we're getting gas. And I'm dressed as a wild shamanist woman animal. Trying to talk down this Asperger kid.
Yourself.
Yeah, the Asperger kid is crying. Everybody's watching, and this whole thing is unfolding in a public parking lot gas station. This is what people are starting to do.
Well, I keep saying that this whole time period we've been in over the last few years has been about whatever you have unresolved within yourself is fleeing to the surface for the opportunity for it to be healed. And so this is an example of exactly that. And I'm sure everyone watching has their version of something like that, whether it's a family member or a coworker or a boss or a neighbor.
Or a spouse. It's terrible when it's a spouse. The stories I hear from women about how, they're out with their husbands and their husbands have a drinking problem. And so they create the scene and they turn up the music. And I mean, it's so interesting that everyone is acting out and relationships are really struggling. And women, because I mainly work with women, they have the decision. You can either go the direction where you attack, which then somebody could be packing and they could shoot you, you know. In my little country, sleepy, nobody lives here town of McKennedy, where my studio is, I love it that way, rent's cheap. They had drive-by shootings. So, you know, in people, and I said to myself, I said, if this is what's happening in public, what's happening in people's homes? What's
Right,
happening?
because it's coming out, right? It's
Houses.
kind of like when you see one cockroach, there's 1,000 of them in your walls. The same thing with mice, right? It's like, so if
Right.
you're seeing this acting out in public, oh, there's a lot more going on behind the scenes.
Oh yeah. And I know you've been seeing it in your own life, you know, with your clients, in your
Very much
connections
so.
and relationships with people.
Yep. Well, and it doesn't necessarily always act out actually in your face either, right? It could be also acting out, you know, when you've got someone who is acting out at you, and depending on how you're processing that. I just had someone close to me get a cancerous tumor that they didn't even know that they had in their colon, and had it removed. And she's 52 years old. And they're like, this is not the size of a polyp we see. We see this more like with an 80-year-old person where it's been growing forever, and you're only 52. And it's like, oh, you know, so we're being, you know, we're being called to, and if it's acting on your health, you may not be pushing it and projecting it onto other people. You're absorbing it from other people, but because it's going to be one of those two ways, right? It's going to be projected out, or it's going to be absorbed, or you're in a state of neutrality. Like, those are the three options.
Yes. And that's actually what happened, you know. Right. So we were at the parking lot, and, you know, she's attacking, and I'm staying neutral, but, you know, helping this kid out to dial down because he's crying and pumping his gas. And then we saw our friend who's a Chicago detective. And I said, hey, how would you handle this situation? And they said, I would have gone to the kid, and I would have, you know, said, hey, do you need a hand? What do you need? How can I help? You know, acting is a little bit buffer that way, but not antagonizing the situation. Right. It's really hard for anybody to know how to act out in this world that's getting more volatile. Women are having problems in relationships that they never had before, or they haven't seen for 20 years. Kids are acting out based on what the family is feeling. All the animals are getting sick because they don't know how to manage all the tension that constantly in the households.
Right. And it's interesting to me because we are at this time period where we really have to go inside. That's the only solution. You know, you cannot force somebody into how you want them to show up. You can't. Whether it's your employees,
you can't, and they won't do it, and they'll dig in their heels and they will fight back. You cannot try to force even goodness and goodwill on someone if they are dealing with their own emotions.
Right. So I just taught this I have a live coaching class now that, you know, so if anyone wants to go to juliemurphy.com, get on my email list, because I am going to be running these every other month, to where it's a new group for 3 months. I coach people, and I just reminded my group the other day that, you know, we're all connected like an energy grid. So if you go inside and do your work, and what does your work mean? Your work is do whatever you need to do in all this upheaval to get grounded and in a state of neutrality. And Rita, even the other day, like I called you. I was like in this place, and I was like, okay, all this stuff's coming at me. So sometimes it's, maybe you don't know how to get there yourself, and maybe it's that you have to reach out to, like, even if it's like a meditation or whatever tool is in your toolbox. And one of those tools could be like, I reached out to you, Rita, and I was like, okay. And you literally walked me through how to get other people's stuff energetically out of my body. And so then I was in my own energy and in my own state. And then I made sure I kept my exercise up. I kept green juicing and keeping my body alkaline and eating light and fasting. So I was very present. I was very much in the present moment while the storm is happening around me. And then when you take care of self, then you can observe those things as opposed to react to those things. And that allows you to be
Right.
in
And that's
neutrality.
what happened. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened at this gas station. You know, she got triggered because it reminded her of someone she loves who's vulnerable,
Yeah.
you know, and so she went into attack mode. And me, even though I'm dressed as, you know, some whack job, piece of art, I got out of the minivan and I walked over and I brought this state of neutrality to the space. Let's bring down the kid.
You controlling your energy provided that for all those others present. Now, whether they chose to step into it or not is a different story, but at least you provided the container. Right? And so the question is
it didn't have to be traumatized and no one started a shootout and, you know, so it didn't escalate.
Right.
Which it was going to do with, you know, if people kept throwing gasoline on the fire.
Right. And so I would challenge everyone watching this is, what container are you holding in the world today? Are you holding the container of tapping into the fear of nuclear war? Are you tapping into, oh my God, the masks are off? Oh my God. Are you tapping into your own anxiety about whatever? You know, I might lose my job, or how's this going to work? And we really need to understand that we choose what container we're creating. And you can choose whatever that is. Like, even as I'm being pressed today, I'm choosing the container of what I want to create in my life. Even though the things around me are not supportive of that at this juncture. That's okay. It's all right. It's just the fact that that's just the resistance trying to keep me stuck. And it's like, no, not going to be stuck, right? It's about creating the container and the life and the energy and the happiness and the joy that I want day in and day out. It was very interesting. I had a great conversation with my dad that was similar to that this week. And I said, Dad, didn't you teach me to do what was right for Julie and go for it? He goes, yeah, I did. Because he was a little angry at one of my siblings. And I go, so why are you mad at her for, my sister, for doing the right thing for herself? Well, it wasn't the right thing for me. And I was like, oh.
Whoa. And see, this is how it happens. Women are trapped in these double standards all the time. People walk around and they say, you need to be like this and you need to be like that. And we go, oh, okay, I'll do it. You know, and then it's hypocrisy.
And to be fair, you know, I know my dad is a very loving person.
Yes.
And he is just in his own training and his own patterning. And I was like,
unconscious.
Right. And I said, well, Dad, this isn't an uncommon pattern that you've done. And I pointed out then, like, an instance him and I had about 12 years ago where he actually didn't talk to me for a year and a half because I wouldn't just do what he said.
Yes.
Because I was doing what was right for me as opposed to what was right
for him. A year and a half. Good for you for sticking to your authenticity.
Well, I just sat there going, I couldn't even fathom that it was almost like the little boy in him that was hurt was kicking and screaming. I go, Dad, you're like having a temper tantrum at 73 years old. And I was like,
there's no need.
Right. And I said, so just maybe if you could just observe it and maybe just forgive her for doing what hurt your feelings, but know that it was because she was following her own heart. And maybe there's a higher level to all. Like, he's like, wow. But it was interesting because he heard me on some level, which was beautiful, right? But I was like, wow, this stuff goes deep with families. It really goes deep.
Very deep. Generations and generations back. And that's why, you know, when I talk to you most of the time, I say, I don't want to hear people's stories because that just keeps
You're just pulling the past into the present moment to create the exact same future.
What really needs to happen is, let's say when I'm coming up against somebody that, you know, that's agitated like that, I don't try to talk them out of it. Right. Instead, I just stay in a really great place of centeredness and I do things that make me happy. Like if I'm feeling uncomfortable because they're uncomfortable and I'm an empath, then I'll start walking around and lighting candles and putting on essential oils because it makes me feel better. I
Yeah,
don't
it's
care.
about,
You can
right.
stay as
It's
mad
about
as you want.
regulating your own. Yep.
Yes, exactly. And when you
Yeah.
take care of your own needs, the people around you respond. And I sincerely believe that people are jerks when they're in their fight or flight.
That's
And when
true.
you get them out of their fight or flight, conscious, present, their higher self, they're almost
Right.
always really great people that are loving and want to help. They're just being unconscious and triggered
Yep.
constantly.
True. Well, Rita, I know we are short and sweet today, but I need to run. And everybody, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit that notification bell. And please, Rita and I are here to help the world at large. So if you could please share this, because we are going to get you to a life that you love and get you out of your patterning. And we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.